Imagine sitting inside a tank, confident nothing can hit you from the front, and suddenly the danger starts coming from above. German crews expected shells to strike armour, bounce off, or penetrate in predictable ways. They trained for that. They prepared for that. But as the Allies advanced, something new began happening on the battlefield. Explosions were appearing in the air, not on the ground. Bursts of shrapnel were falling around them, from angles no tank was designed to withstand. It didn't match anything they had seen before, and it left many crews wondering how they were supposed to defend against a threat they couldn't see coming. For most of the war, tanks were built with one main idea in mind: survive hits from the front. Thick, sloped armour protected the hull. Turrets were reinforced. Crews were trained to angle their vehicles to maximise protection. Everything about a tank assumed the danger would come directly toward them. But Allied gunners began using a type of shell that ignored this logic completely. Instead of aiming directly at the tank, they aimed above it. And rather than trying to punch through armour, the shells detonated early, sending fragments raining down across the thinner top, plating and exposed components. German crews initially thought these explosions were misses, artillery shells bursting too high, or tank gunners misjudging distance, but the pattern kept repeating. The bursts happened at the same height. The timing was too precise. The fragments always seemed to hit key areas: hatches, periscopes, engine grills, and the thin roof armour that tanks rarely reinforced. Before long, it became clear these weren't mistakes. They were intentional. Allied forces had learned that an airburst didn't need to penetrate armour to cause serious trouble. A shower of fragments could damage optics, jam turrets, break radio equipment, or injure anyone partially exposed. Even if the tank stayed intact, its fighting ability could drop instantly. German commanders reported crews becoming confused because the vehicle wasn't being struck in any normal way. Instead, the air around them seemed to be the target. A major advantage of Airburst shells was how quickly they disrupted tank coordination. When fragments struck cupolas and viewing ports, visibility dropped. When the top armour took repeated hits, crews closed hatches and lost awareness of their surroundings. When turrets jammed or engine vents were damaged, the tank's mobility vanished. These hits weren't always destructive, but they were effective. A tank that can't see, can't move, or can't communicate is as good as neutralized. Another thing that caught German crews off guard was how flexible this tactic was. Airburst shells could be fired by artillery, positioned miles away, or by tank guns adjusting their fuse settings. Allied forward observers often guided the fire, choosing exact heights to maximize the impact on enemy armor. The results were unpredictable from inside a German tank. A crew might hear no incoming fire at all, until a shell suddenly detonated directly above them. German armor doctrine struggled to counter this. Tanks couldn't angle their roofs the way they angled their hulls. They couldn't add significant reinforcement without adding weight they couldn't afford. And they couldn't hide from artillery that was now aiming at the space around them rather than at specific impact points. It created a feeling of vulnerability German crews weren't used to. The one place they thought they were safe, inside a tank under thick armour, was suddenly compromised by a weapon they hadn't prepared for. Reports from the front reflect a growing sense of confusion. Crews described strange bursts above their vehicles that damaged equipment but left no obvious impact marks. Others wrote about sudden failures inside the tank that didn't match any known hit pattern. For many, the shock wasn't the damage itself, it was the unpredictability. They couldn't rely on experience or instinct to read the battlefield anymore. The noise, the timing, and the angles were all different. Allied airburst tactics continued to improve throughout the war. Fuse settings became more precise. Coordination between artillery units and tank forces got faster. Air support added another layer by forcing German armour to move into predictable positions where ground artillery could target them. The more layers the Allies added, the more effective airburst fire became at slowing down German movements and disrupting armour groups. By the later stages of the war, German crews knew they were dealing with a threat that wasn't about penetration or firepower. It was about control. Airburst shells didn't need to destroy a tank outright. They only needed to disrupt it at the right moment. A broken periscope, a jammed hatch, a damaged radio. These small hits were enough to turn a tank from a powerful weapon into an isolated metal box. In the end, the reason Allied airburst shells left German tank crews so confused was simple. They weren't designed to win through force. They were designed to win through unpredictability. Instead of hitting the tank, they hit the one place German armour was weakest, the space above it. And for the crews inside, that sudden shift changed everything they thought they knew about the battlefield.